Hey, real quick before we get started, tomorrow, as of this video coming out, so Tuesday, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern or 5 p.m. Pacific, I'm going to be hosting a One Piece tournament on my Discord. Link in the description if you guys want to check out more of it. It's going to be up to 64 players, so 6 rounds or 1 undefeated. Should be a lot of fun. Additional prizings for top 16, and I'll be live streaming it on my Twitch as well. So make sure to check it out and enjoy the video. Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 16 breakdown for the PlayTCG webcam regionals that happened this past weekend. It was over 500 players with 9 rounds of Swiss into this top 16 that we see here today. And a couple of things before we get started. First, if you guys do like these videos, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. They go a long way, and I really do appreciate it. Second, big thanks to PlayTCG for not only running these events, but also for giving out the deck list and letting myself do the stream for it. It was a lot of fun. I really do appreciate it. I know a couple of these deck lists a little bit more because I was watching them live as well. And if you guys want to see the entire rounds, you can go check it out on my Twitch, and it will be re-uploaded to this YouTube and I believe the PlayTCG YouTube in the next couple days as well. So that's going to be linked in the description as well as on this page, which is also linked in this description here. So going on into this top 16 breakdown, we see Edward Newgate here doing his best Two-Face impression, having half of the top 16. And then we also have 3 Zoros, 1 Queen, 1 Crocodile, the Blue Star deck one Donquixote Doflamingo, the new green and purple one Eustass Captain Kidd, and 1 copy of Rebecca. So obviously a lot of red. It is a little bit interesting to see no copies of Trafalgar Law in this top 16. We also do have an approximate leader breakdown for this as well, and we do see again 101 Newgate, 78 Katakuris, 70 Trafalgar Laws, 66 of the new Dofi, 43 Zoros, 35 Rebeccas, 33 of the Blue Star deck Croc, and 25 of the Queen as well. So that's kind of like the leader breakdown and pretty much kind of what I've been seeing, especially towards the end of the tournament. And when I was trying to find the top tables, there are a lot of Newgate, a good amount of Katakuri, and a lot of Zoro. And honestly, there were a lot of laws, and there were some that got into the top, 70 or had a record of 7-2, which would be good enough for a top 16, but none of them had the tiebreakers to get there. So, but we're going to go over the top placing list for each one of these, starting off with our Queen, with Holden Miller doing that one. Also, if you guys want to see more information about this, you guys can check out the interview that I did with him that is on this channel as well. But we also do have a couple unique 7-2s that we're going to look through, which again is a record that could have got them into the top 16. So going on into the start, we do have again Holden Miller's, and again make sure to check out the interview because he's going to have a little bit more insight than me. But I will say that this is nothing like super duper spicy for the deck list that I've been seeing. A lot of people are kind of on this idea. The tech that I choose, RC, that I would probably be not on immediately, but I will probably be on afterwards, is the Gum Gum Rain. We just have so many cards that are just kind of not usable in hand. It technically is a 2k counter. Yes, you do have to discard a card to get the full counter potential for it, but on the flip side, there are some kind of weird scenarios where you're going to be at like 1 or 2 cards in life, but you also have like 6 cards in hand and you're not really able to use the heal effect from Queen. So being able to just have a good excuse to get rid of extra cards in your hand is very strong. And then a couple other things. So we are running max blockers of 4 Hancock, 4 Brulés, and 4 of the Sanjis, the new blocker, which is really nice. We also have 4 copies of Beige. So we do have technically 16 cards in our deck that could be in our life that can impact and kind of disrupt our opponent from like their life triggers, which is really nice. We also have 2 copies of Pound, which I do personally like this in yellow right now. It does kind of mess up with Zoro and Trafalgar Law strong, and it helps there. Doesn't do as much against Newgate, but it is a blocker, which they do kind of have to answer. It does get hit by Marco really easily, but otherwise I think it's a good inclusion. And then on the top end, we do have 2 Soga Kings, 3 Katakuris, 4 Mihawks, and 4 of the new Yamato. So honestly, I think this Yamato is probably one of the, this is the deck that Yamato I think shines with the most. The fact that you could be at 1 life, you could play Yamato go to 2, and then use Queen's leader effect to go to 3, really helps swing the game for you. And also being able to get rid of usually it's like a 3 or 4 cost, but it's still very strong there. So that is kind of this build, and then we have all the removal in the 3000 Worlds and Gum Gum Red Rock, and I think it's just nothing too special, but I think it's a solid list, and I think Holden did a very good job at finishing there, and congratulations for their finish there. Next up we have Frederick with their Crocodile, and spoilers, this was the finals matchup, and I do highly recommend you guys check it out. I was very shocked to see that neither deck in the finals, at least undefeated going into round 9, were red, so I think that's honestly the first time that's happened at a regional that I've seen seen in a really, really long time that no red was in either. So, but this is a star deck, Crocodile. We've been seeing this, I think, gain a little prevalence. And personally, when I started this meta, I thought this, Croc was like a tier 2 list, but I think it's kind of almost risen up to like a tier 1.5 or 1. Just the fact that it is getting some tops consistently. The build for it, I think, is very strong. The fact that you do have a lot of at least like even-ish matchups. I don't think there's anything like you super duper hard lose to, which is really nice. And then also being able to take advantage of the Miss All Sunday, which when you have cards like 3000 Worlds and Gum Gun Red Rock, as well as the Dragon Twister, Demolition Breath, all these are fantastic cards that help you get that momentum back, and also the value of removal. It's just like a really, really good combo. So I do like that for the deck, and it can kind of just get the resources and the removal, and just like the stall from the blocker that it kind of hits your opponent off guard, which is really nice. Other than that, we do have like the Sentomaru package, which I think is the more prevalent, at least on the top tables from that as well. Our top end is 2 Soga Kings, 4 Mihawks, and 2 Kaidos, which is generically how we're seeing this as well. Being able to play Kaido, return 2 cards to your opponent's hand, and then use our Crocodile's leader effect afterwards to get like 3 cards off your opponent's board is pretty unrivaled right now, as in at least for meta decks, so I think that's very strong. And then also just the tech choice of 2 copies of Ulti. This is not like I think we want to see Sentomaru most of the time, and we don't necessarily play Sentomaru on turn 3 if we're afraid of some removal, but I think Ulti is a good like alternative card just to pressure your opponent, get some early tempo back in your way and getting the removal. And also, like, if you're kind of forced to play like a Kaya early in the game to try to get like the cards you really need, this can return the Kaya to your hand afterwards, and I think that's strong too. So that is the list here. Congratulations to Frederick for their second place finish. And then next up we have Edward Newgate under Raul. Obviously there's a bunch of Newgate lists if you guys want to go through them and check them out. We pretty much have like 3 builds of Newgate right now. We have the Whitebeard Pirates, we have the Straw Beard, which is essentially what this version is, and then kind of a third version, which is kind of like pretty much like a mix between the two of them, and really just kind of shown by what 1-drop searchers you run. So Strawbeard, I think, runs Nami. You have a bunch of your 2Ks with the Usopp Sanji and the 3-drop Monkey D. Luffy promo. We have a couple of vanillas with the 4-drop Luffy and the 4-drop Frankie. We're maxing out on the 5/6 Monkey D. Luffy Rush card, which this is such a strong card still. I think a lot of decks struggle to prepare itself for this. It can it forces your opponent to kind of stay at 1 life, even if they don't really have the resources to do so. And it's just the fact that this card exists means your opponent kind of has to play around it as well. And then we're running the top end, or at least the heavy event package of 1 Rad Beam, 4 guard points, and the 4 Gum Gum Red Hawk, which this is still a very strong card. We can kind of leave 2 Dawn open, not difficult for us, and the fact that this can get rid of blockers, especially like Sentomaru, you can get rid of like a lot of obnoxious cards are kind of in that 4K or less that your opponent's not really attacking with, but they get the value. The fact that you get this removal and can help like late game not only get out of an attack but also get rid of a blocker that your opponent established a little bit earlier, I think that's very strong for it. So that's the list there. Not much more about Newgate. We've been seeing it a lot, and congratulations to Raul for their finish there. Next up, we have Zoro, and this is a bit unique. We do have Richard Jam with their eventless version of the deck. So no events in this one. Traditionally, I think we see more of like the 12 or 13 events. We have some buggies to help find them, but this version pops up every once in a while. It's very, very aggressive for that. And the fact that like this is kind of like a sealed deck list or unknown deck list means that Marco kind of has that fake potential where it does have that revival effect if you discard an event card, but your opponent doesn't know that you don't run any events, right? So the fact that that exists means your opponent's probably not attacking into these. They might kind of catch up on the fact that there aren't any events, but the fact that this exists as it is, this is so just a really strong card, and the mind games that you can revive it is always there too. So other than that, we get a lot of the instead of the event cards, we have a lot of the kind of lower to the ground 1-drops and 2-drops and 3-drops that kind of gain advantage in spite of it. So big one is Haruta, which lets you get all that free advantage by putting a Dawn underneath something for free every turn, activate main. We also have 3 whole copies of Vista to kind of mitigate the fact that we're not playing Fire Fist, so this can get some removal. I am a little surprised we're not playing any copies of Gordon, and we're only playing 2 copies of Otama, so Vista is kind of only 3K or less unless we're really able to play Otama into it. So I think that's an interesting decision, but I do think that again, unlike most Zoro rush, or like most of the event-based ones, we're not trying to get value. We're just trying to go face and go as aggressive as we can. So, which is why we have 4 copies of the three drop Zoro and 2 copies of Rush Luffy there. So that's the list there. Congratulations to Richard for their 4th place finish. And then next up we have a Donquixote Doflamingo. So this is Liam's version of it here. If you guys checked out my video yesterday, we did see that Donquixote Doflamingo did win the event in Europe. That was essentially happening at the same time. This list is a little bit different, and I'd say this is more kind of like the standard that I'm used to seeing based on ratios and card choices and the like. Primarily what we see is that we see the guild, which was not played in the winning list for Europe, which is really interesting. This does get like a lot of card game draw late game, but I do think that it is a little like susceptible to removal and destruction, and it can just kind of be stuck in your hand. So I do kind of understand that, and I might be trying the 4 queen version of the deck as well. But there's that, and then like the 3 events that I like to run, I do like it's simple how the package works, but it's 4 Punk Gibson, 4 Bagua, and 4 copies of Spiderweb, and all of these are good in their own spot, especially since like if we have 4 copies of Thunder Bagua, I don't feel as bad by playing Queen, which means we get to draw 2, discard 1, and then we get the Dawn back immediately if we need to, or if we're having to go first because we normally like to go second. Thunder Bagua is really good for getting us back onto the correct curve and helping you there, so I think that's strong just as well. We're playing also 3 copies of Diamante, which is kind of nice, being able to have like a blocker that we can attack with. It is a little bit rough to play this card. It's a little bit hard to establish it at times. I think Queen is usually one we want to play, but again, that Dawn -1 can hurt us a lot. We're playing no copies of a 4/6 vanilla, which I think is moderately standard, at least like either like the Zoro film card, something you can play off of the Luffy, and then also just I'd say like the general package though for film is like as many 2Ks as we can that are film tags, 4 Namis, 4 Luffys, 4 Utas, and then also our 10 drop that is still not searchable, but can help us out there too. So that's the list there. Congratulations to Liam for their finish there. And then next up we have a Eustass Captain Kid, which this is also a moderately unique package and list for it. So I'm really excited to be able to go over it, and the fact that it did get a top 16 finish for this weekend here in North America. It also did top in Latin America, and we will be going over those results as well. I think it won actually won the entire event, but we'll go over that when we get to that event later today. I think today I'm going to drop the video too. So, but going over this one, this kind of looks like a lot of like a set 1 list, but with a couple of changes incorporated with it. The big thing is that we're only playing Bonnie. We're not playing like the Wano package, because sometimes we do like the 50-50, but it's only playing the Supernovas. We have 4 copies of Killer, and the Okiku and Yamato package is really interesting, especially since again we're not playing any copies of the Momo. But this being able to interact with Trafalgar Law and Zoro, I think very well, is very strong for you. It can also just, it has like a lot of good interactions with a lot of cards in general, which is really nice. Yamato kind of changes how the game works, where your opponent has to defend against this card, and they either have to have the hard removal for it, they have to kind of prioritize the removal for it, or if they don't, they have to have a lot of defense powers to not take the damage that this would take otherwise. So there is that. For additional 2Ks, we're playing Carrot, which is interesting. I'd be curious to see if this is ever just hard played out of hand. The fact that you're able to use this to get 2 Dawn back, or get 1 Dawn back, and it's a 5-drop 5K is kind of interesting, but again, I'd be very curious. We also do have 3 copies of Trafalgar Law, which isn't too surprising, and being able to like bounce back a Bonnie to play like an Izo, a Raizo, or Okiku itself is great. 3 copies of Basil Hawkins, which is great for removal and trading into stuff. And then also 4 copies of the Eustass Captain Kid. And this gets a little bit worse, I think, every format, but it's still a stupid good card in a lot of scenarios. And if your opponent doesn't have the out for it, you get a lot of free time and a lot of pressure. It does get hit by Red Rock. It does get hit by like being able to get like its power reduced by red. So there are decks that do get affected by it. But I also think that sometimes Newgate has a really difficult time spending Dawn to get over this, or especially like if you're able to put blockers up to defend it. Newgate has a hard time getting rid of this guy, which I think is very strong and maybe matchup dependent for it too. So there's that. And also 3 whole copies of Donquixote Doflamingo, which again, I think Newgate can get hit by this very hard. This card is not searchable in this build either, so you do have to be a little bit careful about that, but I think it's strong. And then 4 copies of Punk Gibson. So this is the list for Zhehua there, and congratulations for their finish there. Next up we have Rebecca, and this is our last one that was in the technical top 16 with a 7-2 record. And we saw a good amount of Rebecca, I think, on stream, and it's definitely a list that I think a lot of people are still trying to figure out how it works, what the bearings are. I do think like some people do still get kind of railroaded into kind of one line of play. It is like a stall deck. It's a removal deck. It's pretty much a combo deck where you get all the pieces that you need to win, and then you go off with it. And if you can't establish that, or if your opponent puts too much pressure on you, you kind of start losing the game for it. But there is a lot of flexibility with some of the choices with it. There are like best cases, and you always want to like try to win with this Luffy, right? This is obviously like, it just reads like the effect and how it works. It just reads as like the card that you have to try to win the game with. And I think that's kind of like the issue that some people kind of overlook, that this can attack into like tiny blockers, get rid of that, and then you can gum into something larger. Like there's a lot of like good abilities with this guy and combos that I think are maybe overlooked a little bit. But it is a very technical deck. The fact that you have to put 7 cards to the bottom of your deck also means that you have to have that knowledge, like late game, especially late into tournaments. You know, as you get tired and stuff, I think that affects the deck too. But the builds are generically looking like this a lot of the times. Most people are playing 2 copies of Kuzan, which I do like. If we're playing against a lot of aggressive decks, this card is very dead. But if we're playing against something more control heavy, this just swings the game back to you. This means that all of your removal hits everything on your opponent's board, which is very strong. It's difficult to get rid of this card outside of blue, and it just gets a whole lot of value and momentum for you as well. So again, like this deck, I think it's strong. I think it's going to get better as people get better with the deck. We're only about 2 weeks into this format too, so that's maybe why it's not getting as much representation as some people would like to see, but we'll see how that changes in the next couple of weeks. So congratulations to Jonathan for their top 16 with Rebecca. And then we have our 4 unique decks, at least decks that got a 7-2 record and weren't a leader that we talked about previously. And we're going to start off with our Katakuri, which it's really interesting. Like, there are a lot of people in Katakuri. There's a lot of people in Katakuri. Like, there is how many? Like, it's the second biggest demographic of leaders, and it's always like that. There will always be Katakuri players, and they're almost always at like the X1 table and record a lot of the time, but they never really get that X1 by the end of the day. There's only like 1 or 2 in every top 16 I cover. And it's a very strong deck. It has a lot of good tools. It got better, I think, with OP04, with just being able to have some of your vanillas. I will say that this build in particular is a bit unique. It's very kind of low to the ground and kind of rush-centric, with the fact that we have so many of these trigger cards. We have Paraspera, we have Cracker, we have Smoothie, we have Sanji. We have no of the vanillas, which I think have been staples for most people going into this format. So being able to have this more aggressive build that you have just so many chances to play cards from your life and get that damage in early, I think is strong. Only 1 copy of Linlin, 4 copies of Katakuri, and then the 10-drop and Thunderbolt too. So a very, very aggressive build of Katakuri. Most of them kind of go more tempo nowadays, and it's interesting to see this one get a 7-2 record. So congratulations to Bryan for their finish there. In 17th place, very close to getting there. So congrats to Bryan there. Next up, we have our Monkey D. Luffy starter deck leader. This is the black one from starter deck 8, and it's this one I think is okay. It's very strong. Black is kind of in a weird spot, I think, in this format where it does get a good amount of removal and tempo, but it's just kind of beat by most things. There are decks that have better removal than it. There are decks that have better tempo than it, and because of that, and kind of having, I'd say, like this master of none kind of mentality right now, it's not seeing as much play, because I think people who want one or the other find more success in another kind of deck. But I do like what the play style for this deck, and also like Smoker and Rob Lucci in general too, and there's a lot that go for it in general. But for this one, there's not really any new cards. The newest card that we have in this one is Sabo, which is a very strong card, being able to be a blocker that doesn't get hit by any, like the prevention from KO is very strong for all of your cards. We already see that with like the Fukuro and Borsalino behind it, but and then also the cycle I think is very strong. The fact that we are able to, we just have so many cards in black. I think that we are really pressured to run like the Monkey D Garb, like the Sakazuki, the Isho, and the Kuzan as well. We want to play all these cards since they have such good late game potential, but the fact that they're kind of useless in our hand until we get there means that we'd rather try to cycle for them or get them, and that Sabo really helps us get there. And the fact that it's a 5-cost card in a color and deck that normally only does well if it plays even, because a lot of our good cards are even in the brand new, the Borsalino, and the Kuzan. Like those are all even cards and help us go, second. But now that we have like the Kaku, if we're able to get a lot of CPs into our trash very quickly, we play Garp and Sabo. Like this deck can go both, and I think that's very strong. And Luffy again is a very generic leader for the color 2. So he gets a lot of advantage just by doing the, getting KOs, which you want to do anyways. So that's the list here. Congratulations to Lazaro for their finish. And then next up we have Law, which is we're almost like 20 minutes into this video, and we're finally talking about Trafalgar Law, which is very, very interesting. We're going to see if you guys will see through the other videos I go over from the events this weekend. Law was very, very present, just not as much in the North American one, which is a little bizarre to me, at least on a top 16 standpoint. Again, it did, a lot of people were on the deck. It was the 3rd most popular leader for it. And but despite that, it didn't get a top 16 finish, which I think is, again, very interesting. The list here, this is John's list for it. I would say it's nothing too different than what we're seeing. I'd say tech option is the Basil Hawkins at 1 copy here. And then also we do have like the Vista, which, people choose between Vista and Nico Robin most of the time for this. But then generically, it's just what we've been seeing. Most of the 1s and 2 drops are pretty standard. The top end is always 4 laws, mostly 4 this one, sometimes 3, and then some rush cards and more just kind of generically good 3s and 5s and stuff that you can play off our leader and stuff. So again, I think the deck is strong. It is a little bit, I'd say, unlikely to see that we didn't get a Law into top 16 specifically because we do know it's very strong and it is part of the format, but I think that's very interesting. So, but here's John's list. Congratulations for their top 32 finish with Trafalgar Law. And to wrap it up, we do have 1 copy of Donquixote Doflamingo. This is Daniel's list here, and a lot of people have been going to Croc as it's, I'd say, generically better, and the -4 effect is very strong. But I do think that the regular Donquixote Doflamingo does have a lot of strength in it too. And I think like the only other thing is that the fact that Croc gets access to this card does make a huge difference. It's a great card, especially for a lot of the play styles that Blue Crocodile is trying to go for. And Dofi does not get the access to that, so that is a little bit different for you. But otherwise, Donquixote Doflamingo was the blue leader for like the the last 3 sets of this game. It was moderately viable forever for this. We do get, again, the new tools of the Gumgun Red Rock, which is very strong for us, and also the Kaido, which we are okay with doing for this deck. And the only thing I don't like about Donquixote Doflamingo is that we are a little bit linear, or we are a little bit particular with how we have to order our plays, and the fact that we have to, like, the turn beforehand predict what we want to do, and then if we don't do it, we're kind of like, we're locked into using our leader effect sometimes, whether it's good or bad, which is kind of weird for it. Obviously a little bit RNG with how the effect works, but you can still do like the tempo game that Crocodile likes to do. It's more of like, instead of having to invest in getting a Sentomaro on the board for the effect, you have to kind of invest into putting the right cards on top of your deck and getting maybe a little bit lucky with it as well. But this is the list here, and again, nothing I'd say too crazy for what blue looks like in standard, but I do say like this is one of the more recent modern lists for Donquixote Doflamingo, and congratulations for Daniel and their 7-2 record. But that's going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you again to PlayTCG for running this event, letting me do the stream for it, and everything else. So again, the VOD is going to be on YouTube in the next couple of days, and it's on Twitch right now if you guys want to see it. All the lists are on my website, and that's going to be it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.